Ever since Dean Morris left the club all those years ago, I've been promising you they all come home eventually. We just got a scout report on him. I'm genuinely worried we might have outgrown him and we may never see him in a home shirt again. Hello and welcome to part 137 of It's Coming Home. I'm Kevin. Coming up on today's episode, we have an FA Cup quarter-final away against Chelsea, then a Premier League game away against Huddersfield. Since you were last with me, our normal, middling, mid-table, normal form. We lost to Preston, which was a bit of a weird one, because that aside, we're still unbeaten all the way back to Manchester City. We are still drawing at least as many games as we're winning, I think. We might, if you don't count the FA Cup, certainly in the league, we sort of win about half of our games, draw about half of them. That's mid-table form, and that's exactly where we are. This is what the Premier League table looks like at the moment. So we've got, 6 games left. We're in 8th place on 51 points. The highest we've ever finished in this league is 10th, so we are having a cracking season again. We're level on points with West Ham, we're in 7th place. Depending on what happens in the Cups, 7th place might be a Europa League qualification spot. It's still not impossible for us to finish 5th or 6th with Leicester and Arsenal ahead of us. Champions League, I don't even want to think about. There's 6 games left. We're 7 points away from that. I think we can safely say we're not in that race. But one thing we are still in is the FA Cup. If we can find a way past Chelsea today, which is easier said than done, the rest of the competition is starting to take shape a little bit. Fulham are the first team through to the semi-finals. Yes, Liverpool are quite good, but Sunderland might beat them. Likewise, Man United are quite good. Burnley might beat them. We're still in with a chance for the FA Cup. But before I show you that FA Cup game, I did mention this in the little intro. So let's just have a little look at Dean Morris. I've been keeping an eye on him because I want to bring him back. Obviously, I want to bring him back. But he is still earning £175,000 a week at Tottenham, and his contract runs until the end of next season. So we're not even looking at an immediate transfer. We're looking at next season. What's negative? He's flattered by the interest being shown in him. That's us. We're the interest being shown in him. We're the only club who are interested in Dean Morris at the moment. We did make an offer. Oh, Bournemouth are interested as well, actually. We did make an offer like 2 weeks ago. Made an inquiry. Tottenham wanted £60 million for him. My scouts reckon we could get him for between 24 and 34 million. But he'd want between £170,000 and £215,000 a week. Well, straight away, we can't pay that. So if that's what he wants to come back, he's never coming back anyway. But even if we can pay his wages, according to this scout report, he's not as good as Curti or Bishop or Gonzalez in midfield. But he was never a midfielder for us anyway. He was always the defensive midfielder. He's not as good as Pepe Herrero. Now, of course, if we don't get Herrero on loan again, and that price drops to less than 20 million... I'd bring him back just for nostalgia if we could get his wages a little bit lower. But he's 31 now, turns 32 this summer. I don't know if Dean Morris is ever going to come home. And that will make me very sad if he doesn't, because I always believed he would. But let's not get bogged down in Dean Morris. That's going to be a story for the summer. For now, we want to take on Chelsea in this FA Cup quarter-final in the pouring rain, as you can hear, and hopefully book a spot back at Wembley. It would be, if we get there, our 3rd trip to Wembley in a year, or just over a year, which, second home. Pun again. It's as much a home as Milton Keynes, that's for sure. So this is the team we're putting out there for the Chelsea game. We've got Saidi in goal, who still getting better and better all the time. When was the last time you saw a goalkeeper with an average rating above a 7? I know now I'm focusing in on him. He's going to have a terrible game, but he's now part of the full French squad. He only ever played once for the under-21s, but he's been called up most recently into the full French squad. So France are definitely keeping tabs on him. But he's just having an excellent season. He's doing a Mick Powell. He's pushed on a little bit further again. If we have a look at his season, I think he might be the first home goalkeeper in history who's currently conceding at less than a goal a game. Kept a clean sheet in half of his games so far this season. He is largely... I know a lot of people mocked me for spending £53 million on him, but he is a big part of the reason why we are where we are in that league table. If we go back and look at that league table again, I've clicked too many buttons, but if we get stuck into the league table properly, we've only conceded 33 goals all season, which, I mean, that's completely unheard of for us. Last year, 63 goals conceded. The year before, 61 goals conceded. I would like to think we'll concede less than 40 goals this year, and a huge part of that has to go down to Saidi. He's made some incredible saves. And after that little intro, I've set him up for an absolute howler against Chelsea today. But it still doesn't change the fact he's been a hero for us, getting better and better all the time. So Saidi in goal, a back four of Pagano, Sands, Lee and Vicenzi, Herrero at the base of the midfield, Bishop and Curti ahead of him. Curti, of course, playing against his old club. Chernyshov, who is another one who's getting better and better all the time, by the way. If we have a look at his recent form, you can see he is starting to pick up, starting to weigh in with a few goals. Manu needs to be worried because Chernyshov is starting to look like a bit of a difference maker, and Manu's wanted by Norwich and Tottenham. I wonder if they'll swap Manu for Dean Morris. You lot will destroy me in the comments if I do that. And then we've got Kano and Dragovic up front. Let's get into the match. I've delayed this long enough. You can tell I'm afraid. This is our only opportunity for silverware this season. We've obviously never won the FA Cup before. We fell in the semi-final last year in a game that we don't want to talk about against Norwich, which didn't happen. It never happened. It would be nice to go back there and redeem ourselves. But as I've said in that team talk, we are the underdogs. Chelsea are a good side, and if we get knocked out in the quarterfinals away against Chelsea, then so be it. We're still only home. And part of me does still think it wouldn't be an absolute disaster if we didn't play in Europe again next year, because it just gives us an extra year to build, slowly expand the squad, just gradually improve what we've got, so that when we do have that first proper European campaign, we don't mess it up or mess the league up. Because I've had so many Football Manager saves in the past where that first year in the Europa League, you end up finishing 17th or something because you don't have the players to play that many games. So if we can spend another year building the squad, adding extra players, then that won't be the worst thing in the world. Chelsea are putting us under a little bit of pressure early on in this game. Saidi's not filling me with confidence after the intro. He knows the script. Oh, the manager's been really positive about me. Do something dumb in this game. There you go. He's anxious. I've actually made the man anxious. Another corner for Chelsea, and De Ligt heads the ball pretty much through the keeper. I'm not going to blame Saidi for that. I think we're all fairly familiar. Even me, as someone who barely ever watches football, I've seen that man do that in real life a few times. So I'm not going to blame Saidi too much, even though it was straight at him. But it does leave us with a little bit of work to do to salvage something from this game. We've only had 2 shots to Chelsea's 10. We're struggling to get in this at the moment. We need to grab a hold of this game by the scruff of the neck. I don't think it'll be too far into the second half when we see the emergence of Manu if we are struggling to establish ourselves, because this might just be the game for him to come on and show that he is still the real creative force here at home. Herrero intercepts that and lumps it forward to the halfway line. But this is the issue we're having today. We get hold of the ball, clear it, but it doesn't go anywhere near a green shirt. It just back to Chelsea, and they come back at us again with more pressure. Decent save from Saidi there. That's more like what I've come to expect from him. I think that would have gone down as a clear-cut chance for Chelsea, and he kept hold of it. Chernyshov now, again, heads clear-ish, but only heads it straight back to a Chelsea shirt. And now they just switch to the other side of the pitch, come back and attack some more. Saidi with another save, but he doesn't manage to save the rebound. Lee is being criticised down in the commentary there. I don't know what Lee did wrong. I think that's Lee, so let's see what he got up to as part of this move. So, I mean, it's pretty harsh to blame Lee for any of that. It says he misjudged his header, but it wasn't his cross to clear. It was the next man on who was marking the player who got to that. So I'm not going to blame Lee too much there at all. Vicenzi, who I think probably was that next man on, which I guess there's an argument that it shouldn't be our wing-back, who's Lee's furious and playing terribly, apparently. He's coming off at half-time. There's probably an argument that positionally Lee should be the man challenging for the header at the far post like that, not the little fullback. But he certainly didn't misjudge the header. I don't think the match engine showed what actually happened there properly. Right, let's show something different in this second half, and we're going to show something different in our defence by taking off Lee, bringing on Van der Horst, And, I mean, that's all we've got, really. Manu is absolutely warming up and will be coming on fairly soon. Chernyshov not playing particularly well, neither is Kano. We've got Manu, Adrio, Prasado. They can all come on and change this game. Gonzalez for Curti might be a substitution we look at as well, because Curti's having a particularly poor game in midfield. And they're in again, and we're struggling a little bit here. I don't think we're going to be winning the FA Cup. Right, let's get Manu on. So Manu for Chernyshov, and then Adrio for Kano. Double subs. We've used all our subs after half an hour. Let's demand more. Come on, it's an FA Cup quarter-final. Do we want to win some silverware this year or not? They've just swapped their centre-backs over, which is a weird thing to do in the middle of a match. I don't know if that's a response to Adrio coming on for Kano. If it is, they're thinking on a different level to what I think. I don't even know who they've got up front. They've switched their centre-backs around because we've changed our strikers. Herrero back to Pagano, and the highlight just kind of drifts away. I want to see if I swap those two over up front. I'm experimenting now, so if I swap them over, are they going to swap the centre-backs over again? So let's keep an eye on what's going on here. They are! They're literally changing. This is revolutionary. They're changing their system to counter us. Who knew that was something you could do in Football Manager? I've realised lots of people have been telling me to do things like that for a long time. But they've done a bit of a job on us there today, haven't they? De Ligt is quite good. And they've just got him on our best striker at all times, which, incidentally, never Dragovic. Whichever side Dragovic is on, they let that be the side De Ligt's not on. Well, that was the FA Cup for this season. I guess back to the league and trying to finish in the top 7 then. Couple of changes for the Huddersfield game then. We've got Van der Horst coming back into the back four. Sands moving over to left back. We're going Van der Horst and Lee as our centre-back partnership. We've also dropped Curti back down to the bench because he was very poor in that last game. I know Lee was as well, but Pagano, I think. I'm phasing Pagano out already. So we're going with Bishop as the Mazzala, Gonzalez as deep line playmaker in midfield. I did toy with bringing Manu back in. We're giving Chernyshov another go. I'm still not happy with the strikers. I'm actively pursuing those two strikers that we've talked about before who aren't showing on there. I've just had offers accepted for them again because they've got their release clauses. Rego, I think we're getting closer. He asked for £120,000 a week. We still can't offer him more than 105. And when I put it down to 105, he just walked away from the talks again. But I am starting to think maybe one more try in a couple of weeks and we might just be able to bring Rego in. And I think, and you lot who know this kind of stuff better than me will be able to tell me, but I look at that and think he might be the one. But let's get into the game against Huddersfield. Rego is someone we can... Just like Dean Morris earlier, Rego is someone for us to worry about in the summer. The great thing about him as well is he'll only cost us 14 million quid. So I think the missing piece of the jigsaw is the striker and potentially a defensive midfielder if we do lose out on Herrero. But hopefully we can bring him back in on loan again next season. I do expect a much better performance today. So I think my goals for the summer, defensive midfielder or Herrero, plus the striker. Not a striker. I don't want a striker. I want the striker. And then if we've got money left, both fullbacks could do with a bit of an upgrade, I think. I know Riviere has been very good, but he's been a little bit injury prone this season. We don't really have a backup for him, and he's getting on a bit. He's getting on a bit for my standards. He's like 27. I couldn't figure out how to say his name for a second there. Chernyshov has just scored his 5th goal of the season. The cross comes in from Vicenzi. Vicenzi is one who I'm fairly confident won't be here next year. He's here on loan. I think I've mentioned this before. He's not spectacular. He's not good enough. He's not the answer long term on that right hand side. We've already got we've got the young left back coming in who won't be ready unless he makes it. I think is he Ecuadorian or Colombian? Some kind of South American. Once he's played a few games internationally, which hopefully he'll do as soon as he signs for us because of the bumping reputation of the club he plays for, he'll be the long-term answer at left-back. So I'm less worried about signing a left-back soon. Dragovic has just got his third goal of the season. The two new boys are scoring goals. Excellent stuff. Only the third goal since he arrived for Dragovic, which to me, that tells me he's not the answer. He might be a revelation once he learns English, but for now, he's played probably 10 or 12 games now. To only have got 3 goals in that time, that's not the answer. That's not the striker. I don't think anyone we've got here is the striker. Kano's probably the one most likely to get there because he's got the highest potential. He's the youngest. If we have a look on the coach reports are still telling me he's got the potential to be a leading Premier League striker one day. But he's played nearly 2 seasons of football for us and not got any closer to it. We need Kano to do a Mick Powell and quick. Chernyshov from range. I thought he was going to score an absolute screamer there. Looking at the league table, if we are going to be competing for 6th and 7th place with Arsenal and West Ham, we do need to work on the goal difference a little bit. We looked earlier in the episode how we've conceded far fewer goals this season, but it does tie into the striker issue. We've also scored far fewer goals this season. I'm not really sure why. To me, we've upgraded our strikers, but clearly losing Sir Anthony Harris and Matondo, and they're the two really that moved on, I think. Obviously, they've taken a lot of goals with him. I guess Matondo, in particular, has taken quite a lot of goals with him, and we've not really replaced him as a goal scorer. Probably shouldn't have let him go. Chernyshov, though, in again, number 6 since signing for him. He looks like a cracking signing. I think we've got 2 very good attacking midfielders now in Chernyshov and Manu, who... they're a good argument for getting into the Europa League now because they're both too good to be sitting on the bench. So we need another 15, 20 games adding on to our season so we can give both of them 30 starts and they not get grumpy and just fully rotate them constantly and get them both in the team a lot. So that's a reason to want to get there, because if we don't end up in the Europa League, realistically one of them's going to have to leave because they'll get grumpy about not getting first team football. Probably Manu, because he's the one who's missing out at the moment. So not qualifying for Europe could lead to the departure of Manu and the return of Taylor as a backup to Chernyshov. Whereas if we're in Europe, I think we can keep both and keep both happy. Vicenzi went to the little telly there but didn't get sent off. So no need for the little telly, was there, you silly referee? Ball over the top. No one is awake to that, including their striker. So we've got away with it a little bit. And it's cleared back to Sands, who finds Gonzalez. Chernyshov back to Sands again. Forward to Dragovic, actually playing some nice football. Dragovic with the cross. Ends up with Bishop in midfield, who is just building back from midfield again. Plays it back out to Sands, who again is in a crossing position. There's Kano, and it's cleared off the line by the goalkeeper. Some refer to such a move as a save. Right, let's get Kano off for Adrio. Bishop can come off for Curti. 2 very simple substitutions. They're the only 2 players who weren't above a 7 on the outfield players. Saidi, a bit harsh for him to be below a 7. I think he's had a solid game. We've seen him make a save. I think it was the one save he had to make, he made. What does he have to do to get a high rating? If we're not letting them have shots, he's not going to get a good rating, is he? I guess that's exactly it. Midfield, right? I wonder if there's a way to... Can we get one of these 2 playing in midfield? Neither of them can really do it. Although apparently they both can. So can we... There you go. The beginning of training Manu to play in central midfield. Because if Chernyshov is as good as he looks like he is, then we need to find a way to keep Manu around the place. And Huddersfield have responded almost immediately with a goal. So they've noticed I've done something silly. Oh, Kev's playing someone out of position again. Last time he did that, we punished him for it. And it's just reminding me again, Kev, don't play players out of position. I'll punish you for it. There's the other Riviere that people say I should sign him so that I have a Riviere fullback on both sides. He's had a rubbish game, though. I ain't going to sign him based on this performance, am I? There's Torres as well, who used to play for us. He's playing regularly now, which he never did for us. But playing regularly for a team in a relegation battle rather than a team pushing for Europe. So probably should have stayed with us. Right, I am happy with that. That was a good result. And that should leave us with just a few games left to get to the end of the season. So tomorrow's video will be exactly that. The last 2 games of the season, Blackburn and Brighton. In between all this, I'll no doubt go in for Rago again. So there might be a transfer to announce tomorrow. But the main thing is get to the end of the season. I'd quite like to spend the rest of this season's transfer budget before then, which is why I'm pushing for Rago now. Because if we spend the transfer budget now, we get more next. That's usually how it works. Usually, if you've got transfer budget left, I'll get £70 million regardless. I probably won't, because we've not got as much money in the bank these days. I'll get like 30 or 40 million regardless, whether I spend the 18 million or not. So I'd rather spend the 18 million than get a new 30 or 40 million pound budget. That's my thinking. So hopefully Rago will be announced at the start of tomorrow's video. If you have enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.